Hello and welcome to a new episode of Cabbie Conversations. I'm Ed and I'm joined by my good friend James.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, we decided to call ourselves Cabbie Conversations because, well, we would go on nights out and we'd come back and we'd order a taxi or a cabbie, and we'd be considerably inebriated. But instead of talking about all the drama about so and so in the club or whatever, because we don't really have drama, we'd start talking about like the meaning of life. And a few times the cabbie kind of stopped us and went, "That's really deep, man," at the end. So we
Yes.
that's why we decided to go for that.
Yes, and obviously in the actual episode that you saw last week, we when we recorded it, we didn't have the name. But obviously afterwards we did have the name. So if you're confused why it's called a name but not in the actual podcast, that's why. Wow, well, look at all that dirty laundry we just aired. So, for today's warm-up topic, we're going to go for some guilty pleasures. So things that you like, but you feel a little bit embarrassed about. James, why don't you start?
Guilty pleasure. I have to say, one of my guilty pleasures is drinking juice straight out the carton.
Peanut butter.
Oh yeah, eating peanut butter out the jar with a spoon. That's also another guilty pleasure.
I don't know if that's so much a guilty pleasure. I think that's just like uni student behavior, to be honest.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I definitely wasn't sharing either of those, snacks. So, yeah, that's just a warning to anyone if they want to try my food. I've probably eaten it with a spoon out the jar.
Now, obviously, we live together, and I saw you eat some questionable things. Is the general like food and stuff that you consider having a guilty pleasure? Meals.
Okay, I like what are you what is this, Ed?
I'm thinking like Marmite on toast.
That's normal. That's normal.
Okay, whatever you say.
All the Marmite lovers are going to come for you. Don't.
I suppose it is a bit of a 50-50 split. This is the thing with guilty pleasures. Sort of, not to shoot our own podcast in the foot here, but I've always thought it was a bit strange because unless your guilty pleasure is like, I don't know, killing people, you really shouldn't be embarrassed about what you like. You know what I mean? Like, if it's harmless and it brings you joy, then that's fine. Because society doesn't accept it.
Exactly.
Yeah. That said, you've probably seen me eat some disgusting food.
No, but I can think of something. A funny thing that you decided to wear under your tracksuits one day. That was really funny, and you had a very guilty pleasure kind of look on your face.
What the fuck are you on about?
I don't know how comfortable you feel about me sharing this. To be honest, I don't know.
Just do it. I probably will. I'll cut it out if necessary.
You ran out of pants, and so you decided to wear tights.
Oh yeah.
And the absolute glee on your face was just so funny.
They're very. This is a lesson to everybody. You've not worn tights. It's the thing. They don't look like they would be, but they're often a lot more comfortable than just wearing pants. And by the way, no one was any the wiser because I was wearing long trousers. So.
Just could see the little veneer, toe.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
But
yeah.
What else would you say is a guilty pleasure? Oh, cheese. That's a guilty pleasure of yours.
Yes, blue cheese specifically. I know that it's not very popular with people.
But
black pudding as well. Not many people like black pudding. I think really greasy takeaway pizza. That was the signature.
At 4 a.m. At 4 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. What else? I wrote something down. Yeah. Do you have any films that you consider guilty pleasures or TV shows?
Oh, I mean, like, I think I get. Well, we both love cartoons,
Yeah.
like, and we also love children's cartoons, but like outside of, I'd say, each other, we get rinsed. I get rinsed quite hard for liking children's cartoons.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. It's more of a thing nowadays, I think. You know what I think honestly it has to do with? It's like stuff being on YouTube and like just being so easily accessible. I feel like more people watch them nowadays. But yeah, the amount of hours we'd spend fucking watching like Recess or something.
Recess or Avatar or
Yeah.
Legend of Korra or Samurai Jack. Like those are golden shows.
Those are good shows though. I don't care what anybody says. Film-wise, I would say I like Indiana Jones 2. Everyone says that that's the.
It's funny though. I do like.
I love how just over the top, like gory and shit it is. Like it's so unlike the first and third one.
And what's he called? Is he called Shortwise, the small guy?
Short Round, yeah. I mean, it is a bit racist. I'll give you that.
I mean, it is a bit racist, but like I think he's quite endearing. And and again, I can't remember what the female character called. She falls into the massive.
She's so annoying.
Hysteria. But as a child, I thought that was hilarious, even though
exactly it was played more for comic relief rather than just being like. I mean, she was the love interest, but like, it was more for comic relief. Like having this like it was a good idea like to put this sort of rich person who'd never been in like any sort of adventurous situation and bring her along. Like, Spielberg married her after that.
Oh, she did such a good job.
Yeah.
Marriage for you.
Similar vein, Return of the Jedi I always liked. And I understand like the middle bit is not very good, but I really like the beginning and end.
I enjoyed Return of the Jedi.
5 is still the best, obviously, but I like 6.
I'm trying to think what other guilty pleasures and
Legally Blonde.
That's a really good film. I have like that's a really good film because it makes you because like there's good character development in it and she thinks she's not just the trope of the dumb blonde. Which
exactly.
Good.
She's clever.
Trying
Alien
to think.
3 as well. Sorry, I'm just gonna keep.
You're definitely you're a film. You're like a film fanatic. You do films.
Alien 3 was definitely the worst of the first 3. I mean, Resurrection is just like get that shit in the bin. But I quite liked Alien 3. There were some really stupid parts, but I like the end part.
I think I remember going to see that, and I found it really scary.
Because it was more of a like Aliens obviously was more action, but like I always preferred Alien 1 because it was more creepy, and I like the effort to make it a bit more in line with Alien 1, which was like more atmospheric. It was nowhere near as atmospheric as Alien 1 though, and it wasn't as exciting as Aliens. So, but as a general film, it's alright.
Guilty. I mean, I don't know. I'm not guilty of it, but I don't feel guilty about it. But I love The Incredibles. I could watch that. Well, when I watch it, I will just I can be in the other room and I can shout the script back.
Getting Back to the Future, the same thing. But that's like a good film though.
So I don't feel too guilty about loving that. I don't know.
This is again, it's just like there's no reason to feel guilty about this stuff.
No.
No, go on.
Maybe not on films, but like the topic of food, which people would find quite weird, is I have soup for breakfast.
Yeah, again, that's not that weird.
But that's because breakfast is a marketing construct, so that Kellogg's just want your money.
I think there is a wide berth of things you can have, but I do think there are certain things that can fit as a bread. Like I like having like fried stuff and toast and cereal and stuff like that. I don't know, having like loads of carbs and stuff feels weird.
Now having a sweet breakfast, that's beyond a bit of jam, for me,
Yeah.
that's kind of like quite difficult to
Oh
do.
yeah. Have you ever like had one of the cereals you used to have as a kid, as an adult? Like I remember having Cocoa Pops like a few years ago, and I was like nearly sick. It's just like how do you eat this as a child? It's so sweet.
Um, you see, like these days, I kind of see cereal as like an afternoon snack. Like
Yeah, it's true.
to me, it's not substantial. Like a bowl of cereal does not fill me up. A large bowl of cereal does not fill me up. It just kind
Yeah.
of fills the edges. So if I'm hungry, I'd much rather eat something substantial. But
Yeah.
cereal, like curiously, cinnamon is a great snack.
That is yeah, it's a fair point.
It's like a popcorn substitute to me. So like, if you what you know, I'd eat that instead of popcorn if I felt like it sometimes.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, please leave your guilty pleasures in the comments below and criticize ours because I feel like we've been too leaning on each other.
I think we've been a bit tame.
Because we're too used to each other. We probably everyone listening to this is probably like, these guys are fucking weird. But just quickly, like games, like I like old games. That's pretty hipster and douchey of me to say, but I like older games more so than new games. I guess that's a bit like the guilty pleasure of mine.
Why is that? Is it the stylistic or is it the storytelling, or what appeals?
Is well, mainly, just put it briefly, I feel like games are just trying to be more like films, and
Okay.
they're also like trying to waste more of your time so that I feel like games get more points if they're longer, so they just use all these tactics to waste your time. Whereas the old games were pretty short because they kind of had to be because like the limited memory space on like discs and stuff. And I find the old graphics like charming. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of new games, which are basically just like designed to do chores and waste your time. But that's a discussion for another podcast. But yeah, please criticize us for our guilty pleasures. Please berate us. But into the real meat of today's topic, artificial intelligence. Now, there's obviously a lot of facets to this. So I guess I'll open it up by asking you, James, how long do you think we have until we have the first fully self-aware AI?
Well, this kind of makes me think about having a self-aware AI. Reminds me of actually a Samurai Jack episode.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
And it's so basically in Samurai Jack is basically the hero, and for anyone who hasn't watched it, and there's these bad guys, and the main bad guy Aku sends all these robots off to kill Jack, but one robot gets made with a emotion chip in his brain, and he's the only one, and it changes the way he feels about his job, which is to basically be an assassinator. And he kind of concepts therefore has morality, and I think therefore for AI, like for that to be part of AI, then you also have to program morality, and that's quite a difficult thing to do. I mean, this is a problem in like automated cars, because if you say like, and this will be something Tesla is facing, if like if the car is automated and another car isn't, and the unautomated car is about to crash into the automated car, what does the automated car program itself to do? Does it program itself to move to save the car, like that car, but potentially cause an even bigger crash? Or does it stay in the same place and have a smaller crash, but then cause damage to its to the person or people it's carrying? Like, and that
you're saying like to have true AI, you need to have like some semblance of morality.
Yeah.
Because like sort of complex decision making like that, like because where there's no right or wrong answer. Because we have AI today pretty much that can, solve basic problems like with one answer. They can like respond to you and like certain stimuli, but it's like another step above to have them be able to make decisions on their own.
And yeah, these decisions could have life-changing consequences, and that's a really significant deal. It's not just Siri, do you like me? It's like, Siri, will you save my life, or will you save the lives of many?
Yeah.
Like at the moment, Siri would just kind of go, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. There's this illusion of, I feel like people like Amazon with Alexa and stuff like that, they're trying to create an illusion of AI. I'm sure most people, not to sound like a douchebag, but like I think most people who have like an Alexa might think like that they have an AI, or Alexa is an AI because it responds to you. But realistically, there's only certain. They just programmed in a lot of stimuli basically for her to respond to. Whereas obviously AI is like, it basically functions on its own, completely independently from the sort of the only manufacturing that the programmer does is the initial, like, basically making a brain for them, and everything beyond that they don't plan for.
You see, I disagree. See, I say that Alexa is AI because Alexa is programmed to respond to your actions. Just like social media, specialized ads are like respond sensitively to your actions.
Well, those are algorithms, though.
They are algorithms, but there are similar computational models work in our own brain to stimulate responses to answers. And
that is true.
Just because it's I mean,
it's all semantics. I think it's just, it's like that. You're right. I think it's like a simple AI. I'll give you that. Like, it's like, but when I'm thinking AI, I'm thinking like essentially a human brain in terms of it can act on its own, and like it won't be stumped.
A fully functioning robot.
Yeah, essentially, like the first thing I can think of for some reason is like Bender from Futurama. Like, he's basically a person. Yeah, C3PO. Yeah, exactly. Like, because again, it's like when, like you say, when you say, "Oh, Alexa, do you like me?" She's just programmed to say whatever she says. And it might seem like that's a person saying it to you, but it's not. It's like someone or synthesized the voice saying whatever she says. What does she say? She says like, "Oh, I like you too," or something.
Or she changes her mind. Sometimes she says, "Not today," or
yeah, no, you can fuck off, mate. Like, it's not it's not something making that decision to say that. It's a programmed thing. And obviously there's like more to it than that. Like, if you say, "Alexa, find me the nearest restaurant," you know, she'll run an algorithm that does whatever and synthesizes a vocal response based on that. But again, that's still not like the same as you going to your friend and being like, "Oh, tell me a restaurant that's nearby," because like it's just a different way the thing functions. Not to get into too scientific an argument, because we're not.
But if we're thinking about Bender and C3PO, they're still like C3PO is programmed to be helpful still.
Yeah.
And Bender is programmed to be narcissistic and difficult.
Depend, bro.
But like, you see, they still have, and like, because we do most of our programming through childhood and infancy, so that is when we learn and acquire things. Whereas computers do have this pattern too, but like, because they're like they're fully like almost like an adult form, if you like, when we first see them. But they do. I think that's why you have to have algorithms, because the algorithms program in the morality for them to just work.
No, for sure. I just mean like when you say C3PO is programmed to be helpful, like it's still a step above like Alexa being programmed to be helpful, because he's like, again, this is like hypothetical pseudoscience, obviously, but it seems like from watching Star Wars, it's like he is still his own person and his own character. He's not just like programmed to respond to stimuli, like just
But
respond to
what?
people asking questions.
So to keep it in line with the Star Wars argument, what about him compared to like a droid?
I mean, he's like one step above, I would say, like one of those like I'm trying to think of an
Like
example.
Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, those
Yeah,
droids,
those battle droids. Those are clearly not. Well, maybe they are because like
They do
maybe if
talk to each other.
well, yeah. But I would imagine in reality, if that was supposed to happen, if that was going to happen, like maybe the commanders would have an elevated sense of AI. They would order the troops, but the grunt battle troops are pretty much just programmed to respond to orders, point and shoot. Like they're not making complicated decisions. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like say like if it had a target in front of it and it was told either to shoot it like it was a friendly or it was an enemy. I mean, this is how drones in the real world work. They literally like you program in what is an enemy and what is a friendly, and then they'll do that. But like again, obviously they're not like thinking complexly, like, oh, this is a human being or something, like an AI would, like an elevator step, I suppose.
You need to differentiate between like species and age and things like
Yeah,
that.
I guess. Full disclaimer: I'm not very clever. I just watch a lot of science fiction. But that has always been in my mind how it works. Like, we haven't reached that point yet, but I think we could. I think we will in our lifetime get to the point where we have.
But the thing is, but the thing is, why do that? That's kind of like what.
Well, because it's just the inevitable track of science, I would say. We were already creating AI. Imagine if Alexa was a fully functioning AI, and if you said, because there's plenty of times I'm sure you go, Alexa, I can't think of it, like, do this for me, and she doesn't know how to respond to it because she's not like programmed to respond to it in that way. Imagine if it was like basically Alexa was essentially like, well, your robot slave, and she could respond fully to anything you asked her. Like, that would be very marketable. There would be a lot of interest in doing that.
I mean, it would be, but I just think, although humans are very complicated and far from perfect, I think that this would always be a substitute for a human experience.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And I don't know. For me, I would say a time like this lockdown, for example, would be for somebody who's very elderly and is also at risk to disease and stuff, and has mobility issues and stuff. An AI could be hugely valuable, like help, maybe go to the shop, and then like help with the cooking or the cleaning and stuff like that. Could be a hugely valuable resource, but at the same time, like, if I was an elderly person, I would much rather see my grandchild or my son or my daughter instead of some like have like a stand-in robot that yes could be sentient, but I would always kind of know this robot is like, they don't choose to be there, if you know what I mean. There's no, like, with humans, you choose who you spend time with on the whole, or you choose who you value. And I think, and that's what makes relationships special, in whatever form they are. But if you have a robot, it's programmed to be there for you. It's programmed, and that to me is not. Apart from like being helpful, I wouldn't want that.
I mean, I completely agree, but I do think like other people wouldn't be so bothered. Like, to put it short, like, people, I agree completely. You'll never replace even with a really advanced AI, I don't think you'll ever really replace like talking to a real person. But there are many people who aren't really that bothered and would be willing to sort of sacrifice the human element to have like essentially a robot housewife that cleans and cooks and someone to do all the dirty work essentially.
I think somebody to do like household chores and stuff would be popular, but I don't think it would be popular to make that like the default. To be honest, a lot of like advancements in AI and technology actually really make me think of like Wall-E. You know how like they go up into space and they have robots that cater to their every need. Like their chair is a robot, and this AI is being used to replace human contact, and that I think if we look at social media and stuff and things like that, which is like the start of this, and the greater convenience and increased mechanization, it's making people lonelier than ever.
It is, yeah.
No,
it's absolutely right.
And I don't. So for me, I'm the idea of action and like, although household chores and stuff are tedious and nobody wants to like, I don't know, trim the hedge on a rainy day or do things like that. It provides people with jobs. It provides and then jobs and companies provide people with a sense of community, and people contact is really, really important. So I'm quite anti the idea of AI beyond like helping us achieve our work, removing jobs from people, because I think people need purpose and people need people.
I agree. But the problem is, of course, like if you were a head of a company and you could save like however much money on just buying a robot or like paying someone's wages, you'd always take the most cost-effective solution.
Of course you would.
Obviously, that would have to wait till things get to the point where it's cheaper than human labor. But we're also just thinking about it in terms of using AI for menial stuff, where I feel like more so it will be used on when it gets more complicated, more advanced. It will be used on like a government level to like, I don't know, assess threats like national security threats and like predict stock markets and
well, AI is hugely complicated stuff. So like in my degree in biochemistry, they use AI to determine how a protein folds. There's like they found algorithms that fold proteins, and because that AI, those supercomputers are hugely complex, and they're massively designed because they can then those algorithms can then detect other very complicated algorithms, and then they save money on their once they've like been discovered and the process of how the AI works is known. They do become much cheaper and far more efficient at discovering things than wet-based labs can. So they can, as long as there are a few people who can like direct AI, they can cover tens of years of research eventually in a matter of minutes, and that's huge. But I also think that by doing that, we're limiting our potential as humans to do these things, because I think we are.
But this is the thing. I think here human science evolves quicker than like human, I don't know, understanding. I guess where this people will want this technology and then they'll make it, and we'll probably only realize like a decade or so afterwards how much damage it does to like in the long run. But I think you're right, it will harm us as a society, but people won't think that far ahead.
I think this is one of the issues that we have with science. We think we can, so therefore we should.
So we should, yeah.
And that I think can be a massive error in judgment. Just because you can do something, it doesn't like just because you can open Pandora's box, it doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And with all these things, there is a trade-off. there is a potentially like a positive outcome with great potential, but there could be hugely detrimental effects. And it is like, well, who's it going to benefit? Is it going to benefit just one or two people, or is it going to benefit, or does the way things are benefit the many? And I think that's something that as scientists we should be conscious of, or as people in research should be conscious of when they develop.
You're right. I'll go one step further and say, just because some sort of scientific solution solves a problem that you have right now, doesn't mean that it won't cause problems in the future. Like the most obvious example I can think of is like obviously the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer, Einstein, and all stuff like that must have seemed like a really good breakthrough and a really good idea at the time. And it obviously solved the short-term problem, but now we're seeing the repercussions of that, almost a century later. And it shaped the latter half of the 20th century, the fear of nuclear war, all because of that one scientific advancement. And that'll probably happen over and over again, to be honest. I don't think we're very quick to learn our mistakes as human beings.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, go on.
I guess you could question: is this the nature of human development? We create a new thing, we go for it, and then that creates a paradigm shift, and we adjust to the paradigm.
Absolutely.
And then
no, it is, yeah.
Pros and cons, but I don't know. I just feel like because technology is getting faster and faster and faster, like the evolution process. I just think we should be more thoughtful and ethical about how we do it, because we can even create models now to have a better prediction view of what is going to happen. So if we can predict these things and we can predict them with reasonable accuracy, then we can be more careful, and I think about what we do and what we choose to do.
The problem is, like, I'd say it's pretty much impossible to stop people from discovering stuff. Like, even if we say you have a ban on, like, somehow you have some sort of ban on, like, this area of scientific research, like, it only takes one person to pursue it. You can only slow down human technological advancement. You can't stop it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just inevitable, to be honest. I obviously wish people were more thoughtful. I agree, but I really don't see it happening in practice, at least not universally.
Like, if we see this for like different agreements with different international policies and stuff, with like, say even something like climate change, can't get all the countries on board, and if they say, "Oh, we are on board," they still don't.
They still don't do it.
Yeah.
No, exactly. But I guess the question is that let's say we did have robots walking around that were AIs and were essentially like had the same brain functioning as people. Do they deserve like human rights? Do we give them the same rights as us?
A court of law is. You're the law student. Is all about morality. And if for a person to be tried in court, they have to be sane. If I'm right in saying that.
Yeah.
So these robots therefore have to be able to express morality for them to be tried in court, and they will have to be able to make moral decisions which have moral consequences.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest problem. I mean, it's the scenario that keeps popping up in science fiction films. It's like an AI. If you have the brain of a computer, basically, you're always going to go for the most logical, straightforward, practical path, which is very rarely the moral one. Like, an AI would see no problem with committing a crime if it knew it could get away with it, which, using its AI diagnostics, I'm sure it'd be able to figure out pretty accurately. So, yeah, as much as it sort of weirds me out to say, because like the more you think about it, the more you realize like they almost can't have human rights because or they need to be treated as their own entity, I suppose. Like rather than see them as violating the law, they're just malfunctioning.
There'd have to be an AI code practice on
Yeah.
how, and also you could and I think this should be done. You should try the owners or the creators of the technology for the issue. Like I believe that the current AI we have has a big issue with privacy, and that's causing a lot of problems. And I think that because it's not regulated, that's creating huge injustices and difficulties for people, and that there should be more regulation in how things are done. And if that and for that should be implemented in the technology we have now and the future humanoid robotic kind of AI too.
Yeah, and I suppose it begs the question, like if the AI has like emotions, which I guess it would sort of have to some degree in order to be considered like a human or some some advanced AI, like are those real emotions? Like, are they any realer than the ones we have? Because we're basically just code, but we're genetic code. That's the difference. They're like actual written code. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. And of course, then you get to like the argument of like philosophically, like what makes us human if you can basically just replace us with written code, like in a computer. Are we any different to them?
I think if it gets to the point that they can self-replicate and they can exist without us sustainably, then I think they probably are their own species. Or
I want to leave you with a scary thought. Have you ever heard of the is it called the Hydra? Yeah, the Hydra scenario. James.
Okay, what is that?
So you haven't heard? Okay. It is essentially, so imagine years and years in the future, scientists create an AI called Hydra, where essentially they among other features they give it obviously the feature of like self-preservation, that it will want to preserve itself, and that sort of extrapolates to the point where it will actively pursue people that want it destroyed. It goes one step beyond self-preservation, and then that even goes beyond one step further, and it will actively hunt people who didn't originally help it to be created. Does that make sense so far?
So it's basically on the pathway to dominance.
Yeah, but specifically, like, if it's pursuing people, so let's say it kills anybody who didn't actively help it to be made, right?
Okay.
That means that if we don't want to be killed by the Hydra, we should really start making it or help it to be created. But then obviously we're securing our own doom because we're obviously making it. So we're kind of fucked either way.
Well, just don't make it.
Yeah, that's the other option. No, it's interesting. This was in a sci-fi magazine back in the 80s. Apparently, it was too terrifying of a concept public. Yeah, until someone figured out. But this is something that because we could say just don't make it, but like we said earlier, technology is an unalterable course. You know, I feel like when we get to the point, I mean, we're already kind of at that now, where you can make an AI in your bedroom. Maybe in like a few decades, some kid will just make it in his bedroom, and then we'll all be fucked. Basically. But yeah, Terminator 2, that's going to happen in real life, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Okay. We're going to get destroyed.
I mean, like, it's serious, but like, how likely do you think that scenario is? Like, AI becomes decides we're not worth it.
I think AI could be our undoing, but not because of how it's advanced it's got. I think AI is a massive, like, where all our data and stuff goes is a huge energy drain, and all the satellites that we have to send up into space to manage things like our phones. And I think we have to mine all of these resources from Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we could, basically run out of resources, and then also these resources we need for things like food and stuff, or water, because those require huge amounts of energy to keep them cool, things like that. And we could actually end up just killing ourselves off, because the technology becomes it requires too much energy for us to maintain it.
Yeah, do you think that the AI will examine human behavior and say, well, they're draining the planet, so we should get rid of them? We're like the biggest parasite on the planet. What do you think about it?
I mean, definitely. My geography AS made me think, well, you know what? The world would be a lot happier if we all died.
No, literally, yeah. I mean, there'd be no one there to enjoy it, but it would be a lot nicer.
All the animals would enjoy it for us, and all the plants and stuff, all the bacteria and things, they would have a great time. But because things would return to a symbiotic level, which is not current.
Exactly. Well, that's a nice cheery note to end on.
Death to humans.
We're all gonna die. Nah, we'll be all right. Probably, maybe.
Not yet.
Not for a few years, maybe a few months or so. But yeah, thanks very much for listening to our podcast. Please leave any of your opinions on the topics we discussed in the comments, and also any feedback you want to give us. We'd love to hear it. But yeah, thanks very much. I'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.